Welcome back to College Football Addiction. We're on Texas football today. A big one in the SEC. The playoff committee still somewhat buying into Texas if they can pick up one of these last two. What are our thoughts here as we start to inch towards this UGA game in a couple of days?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be a very physical football game. My thoughts are Kirby's smart. It's us against the world. That guy could be 27-0 in his last 27 games, and he's like John Calipari. He's going to find a way for his team to be looked at as the underdog. They're red out in Georgia. They're favored by 6.5. It's in Athens at night. It's us against the world. That's what makes him really good. I mean,
even when they won the national title in 22 with their LSU 19's up there, but like with one of the most talented teams we've ever seen. And what did the players say in ESPN afterwards? Yeah, nobody believed in us. And I'm just like, what do you mean nobody? You were playing TCU. Right. Like everyone believed in you. TCU believed in you. Yeah. Like what are we saying?
Kirby must write some unbelievable things on the board and
yes, he's got burners,
lockers, players' lockers. I mean, who knows? I've never been in there, but I can only imagine. He must have players' moms telling him they've been terrible this year. I mean, who knows with Kirby? But whatever he does, it works, and that's the main point. Georgia's going to bring the fight physically to Texas and see if Texas is going to match up with that physical fight. And it's more defense versus offense, right? I mean, that's the key is, Texas has struggled running the football in both games last year against Georgia. Now, the game in Austin, that was a physical, just Georgia showed up to take Texas lunch, and they did, right? The SEC championship game was a little bit more even in some of that way in that regard, but Texas struggled to run the football on Georgia in either game. Trey Weiser had 51 and 52 yards, I think, in those games. But it was the sack yards. It was 13 sacks, right? So when you look at the rushing yards, Texas had averaged like 1.2 yards a carry in those two games. But that's not a true indicator. But still, Texas, the biggest thing for me with Texas going into Georgia's a 2.5 to 3 yard run is actually a good play in this game. And you have to be willing to stick with it and that be part of your game plan. Because I think the worst thing that can happen for Texas is the Georgia, it gets rolling downhill physically against them. And I mean more of a mindset standpoint. And then Texas just abandons run. Because then those Georgia linebackers, double A gap barrel blitzes, all the things they do with their linebackers are going to become a real issue. Arch has more mobility than Quinn. Quinn can only play within the pocket effectively against the athletic team. So Arch, you can move your pocket. You can do some different things with him. He's still not a twitchy, make you miss guy, though. He's a good athlete and a fast athlete and a big kid. But it's not like he's going to be sitting there dancing and darting in the pocket. It's still going to have to be pocket movement and some design things for him on the move. But Texas can slow down Georgia's pass rush, and they're not as good without Jalen Walker and Michael as they were a year ago. I mean, Jalen Walker is a special player, but Georgia's a little different this year. And they're not quite the pass rushers individually that they had last year, but as a collective linebacker group, they're good. So I think Texas can do some things to combat that, but they have to stick with the run game because Georgia's going to try to say, all right, we're here to be physical on offense and we're here to be physical on defense. Are you going to match us? That's the way this game's going to start.
Yeah, I agree on the pass rushers for sure. Like, I do think they're coming around a little bit, but I also don't know. Their last two games are against Mississippi State and Florida, right? And so I do think their pass rushers are starting to look better, but I do, how bought in is Florida still at this point? Mississippi State's just not great overall, although they've had some nice performances, which ultimately they couldn't come out on the right side of. But I do think their pass rushers are getting better. Their biggest test is this weekend, against a better offensive line than they've seen in maybe a month, right? And so Georgia, the thing about Kirby, and you talk about him motivating, the other thing I think he does incredibly well is you may not have to be better than Georgia and I've said this a couple of times, so I'm stealing from myself, but you may not have to be better than Georgia for all four quarters, but you probably need to be better than them for the last two quarters. Yeah. And I think it's not inconceivable that Texas could come out in this game and have a 10-point lead at the half, but Georgia's just never out of it, man. Yeah. That has to frustrate every one of their opponents. I mean, Florida should have beat them.
Ole Miss scored on five.
Ole Miss should have beat them
and lost. Five straight possessions to start the game and lost.
Tennessee should have beat them.
Yeah.
But if you don't, whatever euphemism or analogy you want to use, take your shot at the king and miss, or cut the head off the snake, Pate says, or just anything. Like,
Yeah.
you better be better in the fourth quarter. That's all I got to say. You can, not that teams come back on Georgia a lot, but it doesn't even matter. It almost feels like it doesn't even matter. Now, if you go up 28-0 or something in the first quarter, which
Right.
even Bama did that last year and still couldn't find it, still let them back. You just better be better in late game situations. He's so freaking good at adjusting, and
Well,
they never doubt. At Georgia, they never doubt. Even if they're down, they don't care.
And I thought last year was not the way Kirby really builds an identity of an offensive team around his defense. They threw it 60% of the time and ran it 40 last year. They obviously changed that. This looks more like the Kirby Smart team, to your point, that we've traditionally known, and that's run it 58 to 59% of the time and pass it 41, 42% of the time. But to what you're getting at, I think, is what makes it tough is over the course of the game, that ability to run the football and that offensive line for Georgia starting to lean on you over time, that wears on you. They've run the football effectively on some really good teams. The best Auburn may have a bad team now. They don't have a coach, but their defensive front's really good. That's the only team that's really slowed their run game down, and those guys are really good up front. Durkin does a good job in run defense, even though A&M ran it on him. For the most part, they've done a really good job. But Georgia, if they can get going on you downhill and they can just let that run game kind of chip away at you, then when it comes time for winning time in the fourth quarter, they know their identity and what they can lean on. And Gunnar Stockton has played so well off of that. I think it's a really good match in marriage there, and their offensive line, while it was banged up early in the year, has gotten better. And they have a couple of really good freshmen that are contributing there that weren't the most highly recruited guys in the country. They weren't the 5-star ranked guys, but they're really good players. So I think that's what Georgia's done. I think they're back to being the Kirby Smart identity that I was accustomed to seeing. Last year didn't feel like that to me.
We talked about Arch a little bit, just his athleticism and be able to move the pocket, really since the Florida game. Obviously since the Florida game, Texas hasn't dropped another one. And I think a lot of people, were pretty low on Texas at points. I'm sure, even Texas fans were at points through this, but then you do kind of look at the context and the perspective of, okay, well, yeah, they lost to the best team in the country and probably from an efficiency standpoint should have won that game. And then they lost to a bad Florida team, but everybody gets everybody gets one in the SEC, and most teams get 2 or 3. And then really since then they found a way, and certainly they've looked better here as of late, and just pummeling a Vandy team that did, I don't know if Texas took their foot off the gas or Vandy just finally found something. Probably felt like more of the former to me, but a game that was never really in doubt until that onside kick kind of got a little hairy. But just what has changed maybe for Arch over the second half of the season? Is it just more time in the system, or what kind of has you maybe more excited there than the way he was playing early?
I think it's a few things. So one, he has got confidence now. Like I'll be honest, like after the UTEP game, I was a little worried for him. I was like, man, he was missing layup throws. Like there was a swing pass that he threw 3 feet over the running back's head from like 7 yards away, and I think one of the trainers caught it over the shoulder. I was like, whoa, this is not going the direction we want it to go, and Arch wants it to go. And when I say we, as a fan of a kid that's a really good player, right? And you're just like, man, he is. The struggle bus was real there for a while. But I think his confidence has grown, right? I think that's a big part of it. I think the Oklahoma game, while he didn't put up wild numbers, he had a really efficient game, played a really smart game there. Kentucky was an offensive disaster. I mean, that's one of the worst outputs Texas has had offensively in many years. I mean, it was the worst since 2015 against Notre Dame, which was dismal, dismal, dismal. Then they came back, and what I think there's been some subtle changes here. One, they shifted away from as much 12 personnel and they went to 11 personnel. And I think that's what Texas did so well last year, right? And so I think Sark wanted to fit these pieces, 12 personnel, have more of that play action, turn your back to the defense, really stretch the field vertically. I think the offensive line struggled with that. I think the tight ends and blocking struggled with that. Everybody's blaming the offensive line. I think the perimeter block, I think blocking as a whole was really a struggle for Texas. Everybody's blaming one position. I think it was a lot of things, me personally. Then I'll tell you another subtle one that happened is AJ Milwee, his quarterback coach, who also is a big part of making the scripts with him and kind of knows his brain, moved back up to the box for Mississippi State. He had been when Sark got to Texas and originally constructed his staff. AJ Milwee was his eyes in the sky in the box, right? So they kind of worked in tandem, which they had been accustomed to working in tandem together at Alabama. Even though AJ Milwee was more of the analyst role in that, but they have the same brain. AJ knows what Sark's looking for. They're on the same page with everything. But last year they felt like AJ Milwee could help Quinn more on the field versus being in the box. And they stuck with that through Kentucky this year. And then AJ Milwee moved in the box against Mississippi State. In the last two games, and I'm not sitting here saying, oh, Sark can't do it himself, but this is football, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Eyes in the sky matter if you're on the same page with that guy. He knows what Sark's looking for. They build a script together. They break it all down together. So the last 2 weeks, I think they've less 12 personnel. They made an offensive line shift. Cole Hudson was the center. He's now the left guard. Connor Robertson stepped in at the center spot after Hudson missed a couple of games with injury. So they've gone to 11 pers. They've changed a couple of things up front on the offensive line. AJ Milwee's moved to the box. Arch has more confidence. Emmett Mosley missed the first 4 games of the year. He's now becoming a player for them. So I think it's a lot of things. But again, here's the thing, TJ. It doesn't matter what happened against Mississippi State and Vanderbilt.
I will get right back to the video, but first, let me give some love to our friends over at Sleeper. We've told you all season, you need to be on the Sleeper app, whether you're checking scores, whether you're playing the more or less game to make some money with us on the Power 2 on Wednesdays. Get over to the Sleeper app right now. Use our code CFA for a 100% match up to $100. Terms and conditions apply, so check their terms of use for more details. The Sleeper app is where you need to be as this college football season wraps up, and the Power 2 is where you need to be so that you make some money with us on Wednesdays live at noon.
For fans, in media, it only matters what happens Saturday night in Athens.
Yeah.
So all these things we talk about, while they've been positive for Texas, Texas isn't really judged against Mississippi State. And fair or not, they're not really judged against Vanderbilt. All people see is they win, right? They're judged against Georgia because when you come into the SEC, and after last year, Georgia went to Austin and physically beat up Texas. Texas came back, had a field goal to win the SEC championship, missed that thing. But until you beat the man, you're judged when you play the man.
Yeah.
And so all these things we talked about, I think they're positives for Texas. I think they're positives at Arkansas against Arkansas next week. I think they're positives against A&M in Austin in 2 weeks. But you're going to be judged against Georgia. That's just the way it is until you beat Georgia.
You mentioned the motivation factor that Kirby's able to get out of his guys, even when they're massive favorites or when everybody believes them. That's some of that's got to exist on Texas' side too, because they've got to internally believe that too. Yeah, we're glad we beat Vandy. I'm glad that Vandy was one loss team when we played them, and they're still kind of around for the CFP and all these things. But they have to know, right? And they know what last year looked like, and they understand that, shoot, yeah, if they split these last 2 games, they probably, or, if they win 2 of the last 3, maybe is the better way to say it, they'll be in conversations for the playoff. But it would mean so much more to win this one because of last year, because of where Georgia's ranked, because of it's on the road in Athens, and because I still think a lot of people are doubting Texas. I still think people say, well, why is Texas ranked in the top 10 right now? They haven't done anything. Their best win is a loss to Ohio State. Like, why are they even in here? So I think that's got to be pretty big motivation. Not that you need more motivation to play Georgia ever, but that's got to be part of this too.
Look, so one of our questions on our on Texas Football Coffee and Football Morning show earlier this week was, hey, what's Sark's pregame speech going to be like? I'm like, do you need one for this game?
Yeah.
I mean, and I know Kirby will have his guys thinking they're all youth league football players and it's us against the world. Nobody thinks they're going to win at home. Like I said, blah, blah, blah. But in Sark's case, yeah, I mean, you're going to have, it's motivational stuff. It always is, right? But internal motivation shouldn't matter this week. The last time you played a talented team, it's not a shot at Kentucky or Mississippi State, when Texas traveled to Florida, that's all the motivation these kids should need. They didn't show up physically for the fight in that game. If you don't show up physically for the fight, internal fire against in Athens Saturday, I don't care what plays Sark calls. It's not going to matter. You're going to get beat physically. I mean, that's what SEC on the road is about against a team like that, as talented as Georgia, who believes they physically can beat you the same
Yeah.
way Florida did. You got on off the plane against Florida in Gainesville, and you didn't go into that stadium with the right mindset. And you got on the plane and you went back, Sam, with your tail tucked between your legs. So that is all the motivation this internally these Texas kids should need. There's more to it, but to your point, this is what these kids came to Texas for. It's these games right here. This is a statement game. There's players on the Texas team that visited Georgia and Colin Simmons, Arch Manning, all these guys. You can go down the list of guys that Georgia tried to recruit. There's kids on the Georgia team that Texas tried to recruit. That's what these games are about. And this is where to your point, look, I think half the national media is like, is Texas really that good? We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Like you said, that you figure you beat Arkansas, but you have to win one of Georgia A&M. But here's the thing: I think you still have to look good, even if you lose.
Right.
That's the thing. You still have to look good in this game, even if you lose the game, because I do think that'll matter in the college football playoff committee's mind, unless Notre Dame loses at Pitt this week, and then the whole thing opens up for 3 lost teams.
Yeah, I agree completely. And the committee showed a precedent, not that they stay consistent typically through the year, but they did show a precedent this week. Iowa dropped 1 spot for losing by 2 to Oregon and covering the spread and being right there. If Texas was to lose by 3 or less against Georgia, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, whether the Texas fans want to hear it or not, they should lose by, when you're playing a top 5 team on the road, you should lose by 3. Like that's how it works.
For a reason. I mean, Vegas is rarely that off.
And so if you go in there and you maybe overperform the spread and you lose because both teams play well and Georgia was just a little bit more, Texas really shouldn't drop much. They may a couple of spots, but if you lose by 20, you're probably dropping.
Here's the thing about the college football playoff ranking too. Oklahoma plays at Bama this weekend. I mean, if Oklahoma takes that L, then and Texas loses at Georgia, how's that? How much are you shifting this? Are you still going to keep those guys over the ACC teams with 2 losses at that point? Or are you going to move them behind the ACC teams with 2 losses? Or even a Georgia Tech who lost at NC State and gave it 48 points. So there's that part to it. But that's why all this has to play out. Other people are going to get upset, but I do think it's very important when you want to win the game in Athens. Obviously, that'd be a massive statement for this Texas program. But if you lose, you have to play really well and then go beat Arkansas and beat an 11-0 A&M team in Austin, because that win would be very valuable at the end of the year.
So there's an interesting, we talked about it just briefly before we got on here. There's an interesting conversation, just to go super hypothetical on this. I think if Texas loses this close, touchdown or less, and then beats A&M, I think they're going to get in at 9-3. What's interesting?
I did have thought that as well.
What's interesting? The head-to-head would matter, and I think Texas has a better resume. But what if Vandy's 10-2?
That's the problem.
Do they? Because objectively, Texas is 9-3 to me, including a head-to-head win, is more impressive, and a win that we all watched, right? We all watched them dominate for 3 quarters. It wasn't a back and forth, lose on a last-second field goal.
Right.
Objectively, I think 9-3 is more impressive than Vandy's 10-2. Vandy's best win this season is going to be against Tennessee if they end up getting it.
That's Texas' problem right there. If Vanderbilt finishes 10-2, that means they win at Tennessee in the regular season.
And I think that, but at the same time, man, you knock off the number 1 team in the SEC and the number 3 team overall. Yeah. I think that becomes a very tough conversation. Yeah. I think they both finish ahead of Miami if it goes down like that as the other 10-2 team, which I don't think Miami gets to 10-2. But I think the 9-3 Texas versus the 10-2 Vandy is, somewhat interesting to see what the committee will do there.
Well, and I think what's going to be fascinating about how the college football playoff concludes this year is the rankings. I think only 1 ACC team's getting in.
Maybe, if Duke doesn't win it.
Yeah. And I think only 1 Big 12 is going to get in if this plays out. Tech beats UCF and at West Virginia. They play BYU again and beat BYU. Then I
Yes.
think only one Big 12 gets in. Or even if Cincinnati gets to the Big 12 championship game, as long as Tech wins it, I think only one, because Utah's not going to get to the Big 12 championship game because they lost to Tech and BYU. They don't hold
Right.
either tiebreaker. So Tech winning the Big 12 championship for SEC fans out there, hoping you're 10-2 Vanderbilt or 9-3 Texas or somebody like that gets in for SEC fans, is you want Tech to win out and win the Big 12 championship. Because then I think only one Big 12 probably gets in that scenario. And I know people, Utah fans, are, but hold on, we're just going to keep moving up when everybody else loses. I hear the argument, but
I don't see it.
they're not. If they don't get to the conference championship game, this isn't the SEC. That's going to be tough because they lost to BYU and Texas Tech. I might be wrong on that. I mean, maybe Utah makes a huge statement against or the rest of the season, the last couple of games, but I think they're up against it. But in the SEC, the whole thing with Texas is if you circled 9-3 and said that's what Texas ended up, that means they either beat Georgia or A&M. And that you could argue either way which one would be more impactful for them. But you need Oklahoma to lose to Bama, and you need Vanderbilt to lose to Tennessee. Then,
Yeah.
if everybody's record's 9-3, you beat both of them, and there's no discussion. There's literally no discussion at that point. To your point, if Vandy goes 10-2 and wins at Tennessee at the end of the year, if Texas finishes 9-3, my personal opinion is Vanderbilt will get in.
Yeah. I think Vanderbilt, I don't know. I could see them going either way.
Yeah.
I think it'd be hard to leave a 10-2 team out. I
Yeah,
think
agree.
they've said that the records aren't what they're looking at, and they're going to go strength of schedule and all this. I need to see it to believe it, man.
Yeah.
You're going to leave a 10-2 SEC team out?
Nah.
I don't know that I buy it, but I agree. I think the only way the Big 12 gets 2 in is if BYU goes and beats Texas Tech close.
Yeah.
And then Texas Tech won't fall 7 spots for that. You know, like they'll stay up.
Well, so what in the ACC? Is there a path? I know we're talking Texas, Georgia, but we're veering off. We're having fun. Is there a path for a second ACC team? And I know who your team is. I know who you guys you follow the ACC very close. Do you see a path for a second?
It'd have to be Miami.
Yeah,
like that's the only way I see it happening. And so Miami needs a ton of help to get to the ACC championship. Yes. But yeah, if Texas, if Texas drops both their games or loses one badly, they're out. Vandy loses to Tennessee, they're out. Oklahoma drops to Alabama. And I don't think Oklahoma's games against LSU or Missouri are foregone conclusions. I do think they win both of them, but they're tough too.
Yeah.
Oklahoma loses, they're out. Texas loses, they're out. Vandy loses to Tennessee, they're out. But then you have a conversation of like, okay, are we going to punish BYU for losing close in Arlington when they went into conference championship weekend ahead of Miami? Like, do they drop behind Miami because they lose to Texas Tech? Like, that's where I think the Big 12 could get that second team in. I don't think it'll be Utah unless BYU drops one beforehand. But yeah, I don't think. Are you taking BYU? I mean, I think Miami would beat BYU head to head, but are you punishing BYU for losing to Texas Tech another time and jumping Miami ahead of them because they lost conference championship weekend? Personally, I'm not.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you should get punished for going to your conference championship. But that's the way I think the ACC gets a second team in. Is Georgia Tech goes and wins the thing, and then Miami gets like the 1 or 2 at-larges. Maybe Notre Dame loses to Pitt this weekend. That could be another path. And then Miami beats Pitt. Yeah. Like that's their way back. But I think it's going to be tough for the ACC to get 2 teams in and the Big 12. But
I was going to say, it makes college football around all the madness of NIL and portal and everything. That some of the things people don't like what's going on. Look how much this matters now.
Look at
the viewership. And by the way, the one team out there that controls the destiny of others. Everybody's like, you want to control your own destiny, right? Yeah. But the team I have circled that controls the destiny of others is Pittsburgh.
Dude,
when is the last time Pittsburgh's been in the news this much? They're hosting Notre Dame. They go to Georgia Tech, and they're hosting Miami.
Yeah.
They literally, whether they're finished 8-4 or 7-5 or 9-3, they are absolutely going to have Pittsburgh Panthers are going to have a say in this college football playoff, even if they're not in it.
They control 5 teams' destiny.
Yes.
Notre Dame this weekend, Georgia Tech next weekend, Miami the weekend after,
Yes.
and then whoever they play in the ACC championship. And then themselves, right?
Yep.
Like, so they control their own destiny too. Narduzzi's comments, bro, he's a wild guy, man. Like, he's not necessarily wrong, but I've never heard a coach be so freaking honest when asked about a game. And I just wonder if coaches, I don't think he's going to do this. I wonder if coaches in his situation ever look at games like this and then they start to understand like what their team needs. And if they ever treat like a game like this as like a scrimmage and like work on things for future weeks. I'm not suggesting that Pat does that this weekend. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities for coaches in the future to do that. Like if you were like Pitt, I think could upset them. I don't think they will. But like if you were a Duke and you just lost to UConn, would you not just treat this as a scrimmage? Like, would you not just treat it as like, let's work on things for the next 2 weeks? Because those mean more. I don't think it's crazy to think that that could happen in college football pretty soon.
No, I don't either. But hey, Pat Narduzzi, Pitt,
dude, he's wild.
I have y'all circled. Y'all are the one right now that's going to control the most destiny of people in this final 3-4 weeks of college season.
Their last 3 weeks and then fourth if they get to Charlotte are absurd to think about.
Because the crazy thing about Georgia Tech is if they lost at home to Pitt and Georgia, I mean they lost 3 of their last 5. They're out.
They're out for sure.
Out, right? And so it's going to be fast. I'm fascinated to see who's actually going to play in the ACC championship game. Right.
I don't think anybody has any idea. I know we're not, but I don't think anybody has.
And that's what makes college football great right now.
Yes. Most of the conferences, like who's playing in the Big Ten. It would take insane amounts of chaos.
Yep.
Who's playing in the Big 12, unless again BYU drops 2. Or I guess Cincinnati could make it, but that wouldn't be as much fun for sure. The SEC, you have a fairly good idea. Like things, I mean, if Texas was to win this one and then win the next one, you just need somebody to slip up. Well, that would be, they'd have the head-to-head with A&M. So like Texas does control their own destiny, but it feels like a long shot for the SEC for us to not know who's going there. But the ACC is, completely chaotic right now.
I would just think about this though, seriously, from a college, and this is a 12 team before we go to 16. I know we're kind of getting off the what we came to talk about, but I think it's cool. If you look at the Big 12, Texas Tech football fans have never really had a reason to think we can go do something. Now they do. BYU fans, we're in the playoff hunt even after the loss. Utah fans saying, hold on, let's see what happens here. Cincinnati fans saying, wait, we can get to the Big 12 championship game and upset Tech, and then we're in the playoff. There's a G5 team, whoever it is. I mean, there's probably 3 G5 fan bases that think they have a chance right now after San Diego State took it on the chin in Honolulu last week, and that knocked one out. But then you look at the ACC. Miami's still in it. Georgia Tech fans have a reason to care more than they have in years.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there with, can Duke make it to an ACC? Their fans are actually not just focused on how great their basketball team is, although that's 90% of it. But Pittsburgh. I mean, just think about where we're at in college football.
Virginia. Dude, the Big Ten, like Michigan still controls their own destiny. Michigan has 2 losses, 1 to Oklahoma. And if they go beat the number 1 team in the country, which I'm not saying they will, but it's been half a decade since they didn't, Michigan will finish 10-2, and they're going to get that. I mean, they're going to be right there for that last spot. I think Michigan beating Ohio State the last weekend, I think they'd get in, save a 10-2 Texas or something like that.
Think about where we were 5-6 years ago. People said, start of the season, well, Alabama's got 1 spot, Dabo's got another spot, Kirby's probably got 1 spot, and there's 1 spot left for somebody.
Yeah.
Think about how far we've come in college football.
It's insane. And we haven't had that chaos week yet either.
Yeah. It's
where, again, well, I'll get your score after this to maybe put a cherry on it. But like, we haven't had that chaos week where South Carolina goes and gets up to beat A&M, and then Oklahoma goes into Tuscaloosa and finds a way to win because they're a tough defensive matchup, and Notre Dame loses to Pitt, and the whole top 12 looks ridiculous next week. Like, I'm not saying it happens this weekend, but we got 3 left, and it's going to be one of them. It's coming somewhere.
If college football's taught us anything, there's a weekend in November that's going to throw a little chaos into it.
Yeah. What's your score for this Texas-Georgia game?
Well, I'm not going to come on this show. I think I'm not a betting guy necessarily, but I keep looking at that 47.5, 48.5. And I think, man, these 2 teams are going to score more than that. I just don't. Maybe I'm underestimating Red Out and the crowd at night game in Athens. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as Lane Kiffin 40 in Georgia 43-35. I'm not sure it gets to 78 total. Let's just go 34-31 Texas. I think it's going to be a little more high scoring because I think both of these secondaries are susceptible. And that makes for a higher scoring game because there could be some big plays made in the passing game.
Where can people follow you? Tell us a little bit about OTF, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, on Texas football, YouTube channel or .com. You can make fun of me at either place. Bobby Burton, myself, Rod Babers, former Texas All Big 12 corner and NFL corner. We have a bunch of guys: C.J. Vogel, Jeff Howe, Blake Monroe is a host of a lot of our shows. When Marcus Myers, who played on the national championship team, on Wednesdays, we call it Hump Day with Hills. Tony Hills, long 12-year NFL pro, played on the national championship team. We have a bunch of guys. Will Matthews, sideline reporter for Texas, played at Texas, obviously, and briefly in the NFL. They're all on our channel throughout the week. We have football shows. We're starting our basketball shows weekly. We have a high school football show weekly. So with a couple of former retired coaches, one that had 9 state titles. So you can come to On Texas Football YouTube channel and get just about everything you need. And if you just want to come make fun of me, that's fine too.
I like watching Bobby on Coffee with Football. It's 1:00 and I'm still on my coffee
There
from
you
this
go.
morning, but I do like watching, but he's hilarious. Buddy, thank you so much for coming on and chatting, and good luck this weekend.
All right. Thank you.